that I'm standing for, which is a position in which everyone wins, but which shame-based egos fear mightily. So everyone wins, but the shame-based ego doesn't care about everyone. It cares about hiding shame, which means the shame doesn't get dealt with. There's nothing fun about being a shame-based ego. So winning by silencing the whistleblowers, which is what we're very good at in our cult, ensures, the shame-based ego is so dumb that its definition of success is chronic misery. Oh my gosh, I feel so ashamed. I feel so ashamed and bad, and I don't want this to come out. I feel so terrified. Thank goodness I was able to bribe or silence or, I'm not going to be bought off. I'm not interested in the money for this. I won't sign a legal settlement with a gag order. That's how Jeffrey Epstein managed to abuse more than 40 girls. He'd bribe them off with gag orders, so they'd all betray the next girl. Some by recruiting, just pay them to recruit, and some by gag orders. I'll give you money so that I have the ability to molest the next victim. You don't have to worry about her. You'll have some money. Be a nice little sociopath. Take the money, and I'll continue destroying people's lives. And you can enjoy your hairdos and makeup and all that with the blood money of other victims. No. I'm not into the money on this. I'm not in a hurry. I've been in absolute misery for 6 years. I can bear another few years. I'm interested in the next victim and how they're going to fare. And I'm not just interested in high. I'm not naive enough to think, oh my gosh, if we could just kill all the high facilitators or lock them up, that the organization that fills the vacuum left by high is going to, raised by the same sociopathic parents as I have or anyone else, is suddenly not going to sexually abuse innocent participants. Bullshit. They're all doing it. 12% of therapists admit to sexually abusing the clients. Those are the ones who admit it voluntarily. So really, if you give a damn about any of this, which obviously I do, you have to think over the 10-year picture. What would it take for high to shut down or transform, one or the other, I don't care. Well, I do. It'd be wonderful to have a healthy core of leadership in high actually do their fucking job. Fabulous. It's not in the it's statistically unlikely in our cult, but it would be fabulous. But if high knocks down, we haven't changed the cult pattern. That's the scapegoating that the cult likes to do. The court loves to put, finally, after enabling it in the whole cult throughout their life, okay, I guess we have to arrest a sexual predator. Oh, gosh. Only 1% of sexual predators actually get prosecuted in our cult. It's not because more girls don't come forward. It's because the legal system is set up to protect sexually abusive people. It's part of chauvinism. Why should, So anyway, but I'm interested in something much bigger. And I've formed a nonprofit, Happiness Data, to provide some kind of leverage and institutional mechanisms to do this more. what would it take to not only turn High into the best version on the planet of a world where actually everyone wins? What would it take to do that? How is it done? Can one person be that spark? Well, just about any change in history has happened starting with one person. Gandhi, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King. It's never comfortable. Our cult beats the shit out of anyone trying to bring any life into it. Elon Musk. And boy, does it take a run at it. And it's kind of sad, because one of the things that this sociopathic, let's kill the victim, basically, because they're uncomfortably changing us. Let's kill him. Is it triggers the reptilian brain in the victim. And at a certain point of just sheer cruelty, the victim flips into the abuser through the reptilian brain, and then persecutes and abuses their persecutors or the next victim. And then the disease has spread because the entire community sat around and did shit. Oh, it's not our responsibility. We're just little children. We have nothing to do with this. Please, Daddy, tell us what's love. Tell us what to do. Oh. The group usually does shit. And so you can get this victim-perpetrator flip. And it would be nice not to have to go full perpetrator to get symmetry. But when you've got shame-based people who will not change, that is a possibility. Well, I don't know if I can stop that or not, because that actually needs a few more people than me. If there are any real friends of any facilitator, now's your fucking chance to be a real friend. Get trauma literate, study the law, get your friend back on course. Because I don't want to have to do this stuff. But I'm not going to be complicit in rolling over silently and leaving the next innocent to be killed. There are dead people in the history of this community that would not be dead if it was doing its job. Well, nothing's perfect. It's going to take time. But you've got complete complicity in that death with this level of willful ignorance. So, my commitment is no secrets. Anyone can write, talk, make videos, add whatever you want to this. I use that as metadata for the cult memes. You're part of the cult, so what you say to me, I should see as a good representation of the kind of people High has raised. People watching such a documentary should also see. This is why it's, if there is a committed child family core that takes threat if their power structure is in any way criticized. And so they usually have a fit. Brianna Kavanaugh, I think it was, had a fit when I had brought this sexual abuse to Laura Willing, who had her own little hissy fit because she wanted proper notice before being told that a facilitator was sexually abusing the person she, as a facilitator, is there to support. She didn't know this because High doesn't train anyone how to respond to the sexual abuse it initiates. So High sexually abuses people and doesn't train its support staff to follow healthy protocols if someone has the decency and courage to ask for support in a support group for being sexually abused by their facilitator. This is not Laura Willing's fault. She's an ignorant member of the American cult who's been told how to do this high thing without being told how to respond ethically when someone reports sexual abuse to her or anyone in the group. The group didn't know how to respond. Brianna Kavanagh had a fit. Why? She wouldn't say. She left the room, but she said, I'm not going to stand for Dane dominating attention anymore. That was Brianna Kavanagh's focus. What we need, in Brianna's eyes, educated by High as an intern and assistant, what we need is for the Me Too movement to shut up about abuses of power towards sexual abuse survivors. And then Brianna Kavanagh will be satisfied. If all the women could just go back into their shame and pretend that we're in happy days, that's not Brianna's fault. She's a trauma survivor who hasn't gotten any trauma support. It's just an endless cycle. But it does need a few people to join the circle of transformation, or it likely flips. The same watermelon shape that leads to the victim being just decimated and then punished for being abused, then scapegoats back to the leader when they finally get caught. And then Jeffrey Epstein's dead. We don't learn anything. We don't learn about Jeffrey Epstein's childhood. We don't learn about all the different men that colluded with him and enabled him and rewarded him for being a reptile. And we don't learn about the cult that institutionalizes the reptilian instincts in all of those men. We just go off on a nice parade to hate white men. I'm a white man. I don't need to be hated for being a white man. And if you hate my emotional stupidity, how about writing to your representatives and asking for 4 hours a week of emotional literacy in high schools? Is it too much to ask? Or too intelligent? It's just pathetic the way we as a cult just look for the next scapegoat. It's an endless circle. Who's going to be the scapegoat as long as the system that produces endless suffering stays the same? Now, High has defined a protocol that ensures that its sexual abuse survivors pay the biggest price for being rude enough to get sexually abused at High. Kicked out, marginalized, disbelieved, silenced, told they were at choice, told it's not happened before. That's High. Institutionalized punishing of the victim. I'm not standing for it. Now, you don't have to do anything. None of you do. Not one of you have to do a thing. There is plenty of evidence to shut the entire organization down. One nonprofit said, get the district attorney involved. And I've made some forays there. I wasn't ready to go into this because it's so painful. It's the most painful thing that's ever happened in my life. And unfortunately, I know lawyers and I know the district attorneys. They're not interested in understanding my trauma. Our district attorney is looking at one thing. How will this affect her public image? She is a reptile representing the people. She's not an empath. And that's what I need around trauma. That's what the next victim needs. And she doesn't want the court case to go on camera. Screw the next victim and them learning about the legal process. I do. I'm interested in this for the next victim. The courts can shut the facilitators and High down. If you do nothing, that's probably what will happen. Why? Because at least people who are sexually abused and traumatized in the larger cult, which will continue. I'm not in any imagining that somehow that statistic is going to go down just because High stops existing. But at least they won't be told it's love. At least it won't be from a therapist that just turns them off of all other therapists. That's a start. It's a dismal start. People wonder, why do you want to die? You've got money, you can travel, you run your own business, you're competent, you're smart. Why do you want to die? Here. Your reaction is painful. It's salt in the wound. Your protocol is what kills more Americans from suicide than traffic accidents. And you want to own that? You want to look at the cruelty within your passivity? Fine. It'll continue. Your daughters, your sons, our earth. But don't pretend that it's love. Have the decency to admit that you're terrified and ignorant. And once you've given yourself that gift, get on Audible, download The Body Keeps the Score, become psychologically literate. And maybe you can offer something to your grandchildren or the planet. You can't do it until you admit how fucked up the cult is that we've all internalized. The positive mental attitude, which we can certainly put on all of this, doesn't lead to the systemic change that is compassionate, data-based, science-based, and necessary, because shame-based addicts, which is what these protocols produce, first destroy their own body trying to manage the pain, and are then numb as they explore the larger body of the planet of which they are a part. First they destroy the microcosm, then the macrocosm. Don't worry about recycling until you've stopped the sexual abuse, the trauma, the lies in your community. Once this protocol has worked out, and nobody's taught me any of this. Nobody gave me a lesson in high school how to improve organizational ethics with people that are shame-based and don't want to hear you. I didn't get that lesson, so I'm winging it. But once I figure this out, I know there are hundreds, if not thousands, of microgroups all around the West, perhaps in other parts of the world as well, that are just as ignorant as I, and are just as shame-based and just as pathological and just as vicious to their victims and critics. But it's much easier for another group to learn from high. If I send a documentary in the court proceedings of everything I've done to reduce high's ability to function, the Body Electric or other Esalen or whatever, they're going to say, oh, we've got this problem too, because they all do. It's in high schools. What do we do when the principal fucked another 16-year-old? Well, let's issue a press campaign, cover it up, give her a write-up. Don't make the district look bad. Screw the girl. Don't make the district look bad. You see, once we figure this pattern out, how do we heal this disease in a group that is ignorant and doesn't see it as their problem? I just paid my $600. I didn't want to have to reform a culture. I just was trying to learn interesting ways to have sex. New relationship energy. I was looking for a new partner for my triad. I didn't sign up for this. And screw her if she's an incest survivor. She's hot, right? And she knows she's not valuable as a person. You want her because it's part of your nice little fantasy. And it just reminds her of how worthless she is as a human being. And she knows you don't want to see that, and so she'll probably do some drugs, eat some food. Why do all these women in polyamory get so fat, eh? To stuff all these horrible feelings down. Abandonment, shame. It's not their fault. How are they possibly supposed to learn when a school won't do their job? They're intelligent with the limited skill set and knowledge they have. But wouldn't it be nice if we could have loving relationships and not have to addict to manage the incompetence of ourselves and our partners? Wouldn't that be nice? Is it worth 100 hours of your time? Well, I usually take $30,000 of time off work to write a book that sells a few hundred copies at $20 a piece and breaks even on the publishing, and costs me $30,000 because I care about it. And why do I write the books? Because I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know a little bit more after I write the book. That's why. And I don't want to keep hurting people. You can read the books for $20 and benefit from someone taking $30,000 off of time, time off work. You can read it from anyone. It's better than nothing. So, So I can work on this, and not surprisingly, but somewhat ironically, the people most committed to working at this are sexual abuse survivors. Their life is completely and totally fucked up, but somehow they can volunteer 30 hours of their time to help us with our cult problems. But if you do participate with a commitment that high be a place where people don't kill themselves, with best practices around suicide, with best practices around trauma, with best practices of, it's an exciting project and you'll have something worth teaching. More importantly, you might learn something. I would not be married in one of the best relationships of my life to a highly traumatized woman if I had not been forced to stop asking for my 100%, study trauma and abuse, and look out for another human being who blossomed before my eyes. There's something, isn't it? Maybe rather than running around and complaining that you're alone because you haven't met your 100% yet, I never did. You could give birth to your 100% by being of service, first to yourself, then to others, beginning by snapping the chauvinistic curse and saying, I'm worth 100 hours of trauma training and psychological literacy. And if you think you're worth actually loving and seeing and being seen, maybe someone will get that virus from you and believe they're worth it too, and read the same books, and slowly more people will actually win.